The Nuggets introduced David Adelman as their new head coach. Coming up, we'll talk about what that means, what his vision is for the Nuggets next season. Plus, Josh Kroenke continues to set hints about what the Nuggets are up to. A secret plan is in place. Not too much of anything. We'll talk about it coming up on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, being with us Monday through Friday, being an everyday or hanging out with us all through the offseason. We will be here for you doing shows. We will talk trades. We will talk free agency. We will talk adjustments, rotations, lineups, two-way contracts, summer league, the whole shebang here on Locked On Nuggets. Give us the 5-star reviews. Please give us a like and subscribe at youtube.com/Locked On Nuggets. Do that for us. Helps us out so much. Hit me up if you want a sticker. I'm getting those out this week. I finally, the playoffs, our team finally got eliminated, so I can actually sit down and actually do things that are not just focus on the actual playoffs. So I'm sending out stickers. Hit me up if you want a sticker on Twitter at HP Basketball or on Blue Sky at HP Basketball, and I will help you get one. You can also hit me on Instagram. I'm on there too. All right. Today's show, we're going to talk about the press conference that was held today with David Adelman and Josh Kroenke. More Josh. Josh with two appearances in a week.
It's Christmas.
We won't see him again for a decade. So we'll talk about those comments and more on today's show, as well as optimism or pessimism coming out of those conversations. Ryan's going to fill us in on it because I was not able to make it because I missed I missed the first Josh presser because I had too many shows because of the playoffs. And then today I actually had my dad was getting eye surgery. And so I had to be there for him, and it had been planned for months in advance. And of course I couldn't skip out of it. So Ryan, I will ask you, let's start on the Adelman side. What was your big takeaway from David Adelman's introduction officially as head coach of the Denver Nuggets?
Well, one of the things that he said was he felt ready. He felt ready and had felt ready even dating back before when he ultimately did get the job. The way that he has run these press conferences, I think has actually been really interesting. He has been very direct. He has been very candid. He has been very forward in terms of a lot of the ways that he addresses the media and addresses the comments. He's not beating around the bush with any of this stuff, which I think is very fascinating. He gives us a lot of really good information. And among various things that he said coming out of today was that it is going to be a lot about internal developments and a lot about the progression and the progression in the summer. One of the very first quotes that he shared in terms of this summer was, confidence comes from trust. And I think that trust has to be found throughout the summer. He basically went on and said, yeah, some of it comes from training camp, some of it comes from preseason, some of it comes from the runs that the team does from September. But I noticed Julian Strawther in the building. I noticed Jamal Murray in the building. We'll see how long Jamal sticks around and what that looks like. But Julian's going to stay basically for the entire summer once again in Denver. So, folks, David Adelman is going to reward that. And he is going to be a guy that I think rewards the guys that put a whole bunch of work in for this team internally. And he's going, like, if you are here, he is going to play you. I think that we can firmly say that.
There is, okay. I will speak to this more in objective terms rather than my feelings on the subject. The messaging is that Malone was the problem and Booth was the problem in creating the Malone problem. So they both had to go. But now that we've removed Malone, everything will get fixed. That these players are actually good and they just need to develop, and it's Malone's fault they didn't. And that Adelman will develop them. That is the message that is being delivered here by this track is Julian Strawther can be a rotation starter caliber player, and Peyton Watson can be a rotation starter caliber player, and Jalen Pickett, and theoretically Hunter Tyson, and Jerron Holmes.
Zeke
and
Naji.
Then Zeke. Zeke
fifth highest
Naji,
paid player on the team, man.
I mean, is Zeke old? Like, how old is Zeke now?
He's like 24, 25, which is still so young. It's crazy.
Is it?
I mean, when you think about how long Zeke has been here, I would say he still feels like he's not a young guy anymore, but like he should be in his prime with the
He's
team
24.
and he should be playing a role. Like, and he's not.
He's 24. He's got another year. He doesn't turn 25 till January. I think at this point, I think it's hard to be like, here's the thing. You can reach like your another level at 25, but like you have to have been like, oh yeah, he's definitely like a guy. And we're very much like, I don't know about Zeke still.
Yeah.
So that's the message. And so if you're gonna buy into the Denver Nuggets next season, you have to start with, I believe in the young guys. You have to make that choice to say, I believe in the young guys, because that is what they are broadcasting to you, that these guys are good enough, talented enough, and gosh darn, you're going to like them. And so that's the message that's the message that they're going to send here. And that's, I think if you look at all options, I think that's just what they're most comfortable with. I think we'll talk a lot about through the summer about whether that's right or not. And we'll probably kvetch a lot about that decision and then do it again all next year. And it's just going to be really stressful and hard. And can you talk for a minute? I'm getting sad.
Yeah, we'll reevaluate in terms of how hard we decide to kvetch about the whole situation and just whether one championship is okay or not. But I think that it's really important for people to fully acknowledge that David Adelman is a lot closer to Michael Malone than a lot of people realized. There are some things that he would want to do differently. There are some things that he would like to do differently, but he was also a part of that for a reason. And he was a big piece of why this team, they trust him. They like his offense. They like what he can do. But I still have some concerns. And this is not to kind of take away from the fact that David Adelman can be a great coach. It's that there are problems that the team has that changing from Michael Malone to David Adelman may not fix. But here's another quote that I want to throw your way. On playing with professionalism during the regular season, quote, we have to understand that if we want to have our ultimate goal, then our professionalism has to be throughout the whole season. If you want to create, a way that you're able to go through and translate to April or May, and I keep saying translate, that's what it is. That's a step-by-step process throughout the season that will be brought up a lot because we've been this close 2 years in a row to doing something extremely special like we did back in 2023. Sounds to me like the process-oriented takes that I've been having over the course of these past couple of years are pretty they're still coming to the forefront, and Adelman, at least at this point, is trying to lay down at least a little bit of a gauntlet that the way that Denver handled it over the course of these last couple of years was not good enough.
Let's set this year aside. Okay. How would you say that they failed to do that in 2024?
I think Jamal failed to do that. I don't think that he showed up ready to go. He got hurt. I think that it applied a lot of pressure to the entire rest of the organization, who I think, especially the other four starters, did do that. Christian Brown wasn't fully ready to step into a larger role in his second season. Peyton Watson still trying to figure things out basically in his first playable season. Reggie Jackson was leading the second unit. Zeke Naji did not step up in a manner begetting a role player or an actual rotation player. But I don't think that their professionalism was a lot better in 24. I just think if you're talking about and identifying any guy, it would be Jamal. And they also brought up conditioning later in the press conference as well. So.
See, it's interesting because everyone jumps to Jamal on that, and I actually don't know if that's what I jump immediately to.
Very possible.
So I go to somebody else. Coming up, we'll get to Josh Kroenke's comments. We'll talk about those, and we'll set the bar. Also, hey, the Nuggets were pretty fast this year. They're going to play fast again, right? That's coming up on Locked On Nuggets. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for DashPass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, DashPass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. I am so hungry right now for wing tenders. That sounds amazing. Just place an order of $20 or more and use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. What's your go-to move after the epic game? Are you ordering wings and reliving the highlights? Imagine being rewarded with free food just because someone went off for 50. Could be happening in the NBA Finals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton. Man, a Tyrese Halliburton 50 in OKC. So here's the play. Sign up for DashPass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 in a playoff game, DashPass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and code Wingstop50. That's DashPass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Ryan Blackburn from Mile High Sports and the Pickaxe and Roll podcast alongside me, Matt Moore. I'll have thoughts more about this stuff on my Substack at the Denver Dig, and I'm sure Ryan will be writing up some stuff this week as well. Grace asks if I do a live DoorDash during the playoffs. Well, one, hey, just a heads up, they don't just do food, because my dad needed gauze and like supplies after surgery, and I was actually able to order that for him, so that he was able to get it because I had work tonight because I had to watch the game. And so that got to him, and I didn't have to like stress out about him not having his stuff. So that's something else the DoorDash does. But the answer is yes, I do that a lot. I do it all the time, especially I do Chipotle and Indian and Mexican. Those are three things that I do DoorDash all.
Great combo. Great
combo all right
there.
So tell me what Adelman said about pace, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about pace. There's a lot of talk, especially when it comes to Russell Westbrook, especially, and when it comes to Jamal Murray and how like slow comparatively he often plays. I actually thought that he sped it up pretty well this year, pretty consistently this year. But overall, the playing with pace quote was this, and this is more about the offense in general. I think offensively, obviously, we're top 5 in the league, but it showed in the Oklahoma City series. Our execution has to get better. You know, you can run similar things that we've ran that have been very successful. And I thought our transition game was very impactful throughout the season. But some of that does not translate to the playoffs. And so that's a major goal for us. We have to get back to being an execution-based team. If that takes away from some of the pace numbers or whatever the analytics want to say, I think that's okay. If it wins you a game in May, as opposed to playing a game in December, it's a very different style of basketball. Your thoughts on that particular sentence?
I like it a little bit. So the difference here is I think they were too reliant on transition, and they needed a lot of reinvention. It needed to feel, again, like the Nuggets offense was overwhelming in half court. You can have good numbers and not be scary as a half court offense. I actually think the Thunder are like this, and the Thunder have been awesome, and they're dominant, and they're going to win the title. But like their half court offense is like, it's really good statistically, but I'm never like, oh, what are you going to do? And just like, oh, okay, Shai made a mid-range jumper. Cool. J-Dub, great cut. And they augment that with how many turnovers they create.
And also don't give up.
Yeah. I do think that there's value in not turn. Like if you slow down your points off of turnovers, and that's a very good formula, right? And they've played slower and been really good. I do think that tempo is important. This has been crazy to me in the playoffs that everyone keeps talking about Indiana's pace, as in like they just are so good in transition. No, they're not. This team has the second most shots between 4 seconds and 7 seconds left on the clock, described as very late by NBA.com. Same thing in the regular season. What they do is they attack you at 20 seconds and they keep attacking you until they generate a good look. And if the Nuggets do that, they're going to be very good. But that's going to take better conditioning from Jamal Murray for him to be like, yes, let's go. Joker, if you set that bar, if you're like, hey, we're gonna go and get into these sets, Joker will literally condition himself to match that. Like he'll be like, all right, let's do this. But if you're like just gonna walk the ball up, then he's gonna be like, all right, I'm just gonna take my time. Yeah. I don't, you can have a great offense slow, you can have a great offense fast. Both things are very possible. I do think a balancing is probably better. I didn't love the offense this year as good as it was. And I do think that every time I asked Malone about it, and Malone was like, I don't worry about the offense. We're top 5. Like, they just got a little complacent, I think. And Adelman, just by sheer virtue of like, it's like a new toy he gets to play with, right? Like he gets to install his stuff. So there will be some invention next year. And the question is going to be, is it good or bad? Because I don't want to just say like all reinvention is not good. So those are kind of my thoughts is changing things good. Be thoughtful with how you change it. Tempo, not pace. Those are my thoughts.
I will say that Adelman overall is in a really good position to evaluate what worked, what didn't work for the team over the course of the last 7 years, and then be able to reapply that with guys that he already knows and then kind of take advantage of some of that stuff. I do think that so much of the pace stuff and so much of the attacking the paint stuff and it was the same stuff hand in hand. No crap teams were going to pack the paint against Denver in the playoffs and force them to take threes and force them to kind of bog down in the half court. That was always going to be a thing. No way. I can't believe they got back in transition in the playoffs when it actually mattered. Couldn't believe that opposing teams were able to sort of snuff that out. This is the problem that pre-Jokic Nuggets often had, especially with George Karl, where it was very fun and it was very impactful for them to get out in transition. But every single time, that was the first line of the scouting report when you're getting back on defense was get back on defense. So I do think that Denver has to get back to being, like you said, that unflappable, unstoppable team in the half court that they were in 2023, where they just had every answer. You applied every answer, and a lot of that just comes from shooting. Adelman said that as well earlier today. It was very shooting centric.
Well, at least they're going to add shooting through internal development.
Yeah, that's like one thing I have thought about is that Julian Strawther just letting shots fly consistently and becoming a better basketball player, it will help them out a lot. But Huge. They have to trust that, and they have to play him, and they have to like be willing to get into uncomfortable positions lineup wise and break up their starters a little bit.
And I think it'll be easier this year. Not to cut you off, sorry. I think it'll be easier this year because like every year these guys look a little bit more like an NBA player. Like the problem with Booth is that Booth thought that they would look like NBA players day one.
Yeah. And
it's just very hit or miss with rookies. Some rookies look like, hey, this guy can play. Jaime Jaquez.
Yeah.
Brandon Pajemski. Right. These are not star players. These are just like guys that's like, oh yeah, he can play. Right. Like he can be on the floor in a playoff series. That's totally fine. Then there's just like a lot of guys that's like, no, it's like he's going to get there. He's just not ready yet. And it's okay. Right. And I think Julian, honestly, I think showed in that little stretch in game 5, I think it was, or 6, it was really important to be like, no. If you like, you can see it, you can visualize it, and you just got to get him there. And I think he can get there.
100%. And like, I do genuinely think that if there is some, like, people want me to be more optimistic, so here's me being more optimistic. I am going to just predict that Julian Strawther has a breakout in year 3. Like,
hey.
Oh, am I stepping on the island?
I don't get anything? Come on. This is my one island. It's a very small island.
Yeah.
Get off.
Clearly, we would not be very good on the
That's it. Get off the island. No. Now, to be fair, CT is a pirateer that has himself property on every single young player, but still.
No, I just think that he is going to. You are 100% right. You were on this from the get-go. That he's just about the right things and he looks the part. He's going to be in the gym. He's going to be somebody that the team sees. He's going to be running all these sets. And I just think he's so versatile enough that anything that they want to run offensively for him, off ball, on ball, whatever, he's going to eventually figure out. And it's kind of Like there's a lot of positivity around Christian Brown right now, I think. But there is a real world where Julian Strawther just comes in and is averaging 15 points per game next year. Like I think that there's a very real shot at that.
And like just getting, production off the bench would solve a lot of the problems that they have where it's like, hey, it doesn't have to be the best looking or sharpest or most. It's just like, no, it just like wasn't a minus 20 because they just were able to score at a pretty good level. The defense wasn't good, but it was fine. So
can he average 15 a game next to Russell Westbrook?
Yeah.
I think he can. I'm not perfectly sure because Russ is going to want the ball in his hand. He's going to deserve the ball in his hands a lot of this time. But they're going to need to play both guys enough, I think, that you're going to have opportunities and shots. And there's just a few, like there's a limited supply of shots,
Coming up, we now reach the part where Matt cracks an eyebrow at all the things that Josh Kroenke said today. That's coming up on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to check out Ryan's work at Mile High Sports. It's very important that you support us on the writing side because those are important jobs. We need those. Okay. So this was the comment that was asked about when you guys asked about hiring the coach before the GM, which I wrote a lot about, like how this is a problem.
You had a great podcast about it as well.
And what I was really worried about. And then he said what today, Josh Kroenke?
He said this, quote, "When you're contemplating changing our coach or changing out a coach and general manager, one of the things that I would look at from my perspective is, do we need a complete organizational reset top to bottom culturally? And that's why I make the decision at the end of the season like I did, was probably to do a little bit of a litmus test of that. With the benefit of hindsight, I can look back and see that very clearly now. And I can also say very clearly that this organization does not need a cultural reset. I think anyone that was in and around that dressing room in the last 6 weeks, I think Speaks could probably say that was a very unified group. And while I understand that pressure might have brought some of that unification, I also think it was the people in that locker room." Colin Cap, man, I don't think that that's a good answer.
Go, talk, say more.
Yeah, so I think that he's sort of glossing over the idea that these guys are playing playoff basketball and that they like this is their livelihood. This is the entire point of it, and that they had always been saving up for the entire end of that part. And I think that they just felt a lot of pressure in that moment to perform. And I'm not surprised that, yeah, they came together a little bit. They battled. They did something, like they were able to come back and win against the Clippers and won in Game 7 in a very definitive fashion. They pushed the Thunder, who look unbeatable, by the way. I don't know, man. Like I don't think it was a good answer. And I think that there's a lot that's wanting there. And the idea about shifting the culture, I don't think this, like the establishment that the culture is fine, I think is part of the problem.
This is a trap, and I don't mean to trap the guy when he's not here to answer for himself as a multi-billionaire. And I have a whole thing on Denver Dig about, like, look, Josh knows a lot about pro sports. Like, he knows a lot of, like, he knows more about pro sports than I do, or Ryan does, or us collectively, or everyone in the chat here at youtube.com/, like, completely respect his expertise here. Okay. If the problem wasn't the culture, but you fired the coach and the GM because of the culture, there's two scenarios here. One is that you're fine with the culture being bad outside of the locker room, but when it impacted the locker room, that was the problem, and that's not a good way to go about your organization. Or it doesn't make sense then to fire the coach and the GM, which everyone agrees that you should have, based off of the situation, but you shouldn't have done that because the culture wasn't that bad anyway. If the problem between those two wasn't a culture, you didn't need a culture reset. On top of it, that doesn't logically check out to me. But even if we move past this, the presumption here is that the only reason to hire a general manager and make sure that he's in lockstep with the coach and give him authority on that hire is if you need a cultural reset. And that's preposterous. Like, you need your GM and your coach to be in line no matter what the culture is. You just need that to be simpatico. You need there to be agreement. You need there to be an ability to be in the same vision. And you need to, most of all, not have both guys thinking about this as if they're an independent, siloed power structures maneuvering to get ahead of the other one. And like, I don't think Adelman will do that. I think Adelman's wired a little bit differently from Malone, in part because Adelman hasn't had the nightmarish experiences that Malone did in Sacramento. But you still wind up in the situation where you say to me, well, we don't, that's not a concern because we didn't need a cultural reset. The culture is fine because they played really good basketball for 3 weeks and the Clippers are led by Kawhi Leonard and they stole game 1 somehow. And like, the Nuggets deserve a lot of respect, but they were capable of that no matter what. And you could say like they were never doing that under Malone because they tuned him out. Cool. Okay. But the fact that the locker room got to a point where it tuned out the coach and that there was so much division between guys, like, none of that makes sense to me. Like, that doesn't track to me from a logical perspective. Yeah, and I still wind up, even if we just want to take that apart and say like, all right, fine, it's just like words in a press conference, you still wind up with, I am left wondering, okay, sure, you don't need a cultural reset. Are you going to need one if your GM and your coach wind up disagreeing and you're right back where you were, if not as toxic, but still in that kind of a situation? That's where I come in here. What do you think?
I don't blame you. Like, I think you're right on point here. I think that this is an unfortunate place for Denver to be because Josh is effectively trying to save this core four, I think. I think that there's a lot of saving of the current group and of the current plan. And we do this all the time. And you've talked about this before. Like, oh man, it couldn't possibly be the players. The players couldn't be the problem. There's no way. We'll just fire the coach. We'll just fire the general manager. We'll just change the plan. And then we'll see if the players, like, because that's always the first step that teams in these situations of adversity do, is they just act like everything's fine until it then becomes not fine. And it's why I think that Denver is going to be in a pretty tough place if they run things back. I can put the optimistic card up all I want to, but it's not what I believe, and it's not what I think is going to happen. And there's just a lot of factors I think that are going to pull Denver in the wrong direction. And I'm not sure, like, just hiring from within is going to change that.
Yeah, and this is so there's also an idea of like, look, I'm not worried about it being an issue because Ben Tenzer is going to take over, and I will continue to ask them, why haven't they announced that yet? Is Josh going to do 3 pressers? Which, hey, we'll take all the ones we can get. Any sort of access to ownership is a gift. Like, I'm really impressed with him for being president today. That was great by him. For him to have done the postseason presser and then to be at Adelman's, I give Josh a lot of credit because we've had problems with like every organization, not just the Nuggets. Media has a hard time getting those kind of answers in situations like this. But one of the things is that the fan base didn't care as much about the culture and the locker room problems and the tension and the political stuff. That was a poison around the team. And we saw it impacting things, and we talked about it. And I wrote about it before Malone got fired. I literally wrote the Nuggets are a changing column the Sunday before he got fired.
Yeah.
But the fan base would tell you, analysts would tell you, national analysts would tell you, and local analysts would tell you, you need at least a re-examination of this roster if you're going to contend for a championship. And the messaging that Josh Kroenke put out today was, this roster is good enough. We just have to develop internally. it's so good, I don't want to break it up. So we're going to have to develop internally because I don't want to trade any of the core guys.
I will say there were some things that Josh did say. I think Mark Kisla did ask him a very good question. Like, hey, is the team as currently constructed good enough to win a championship? And to Josh, to his credit, said, I think the answer, as Jokic said after the playoffs ended, was obviously no. So we need to take a hard look at how we can raise our ceiling going forward, whether that's internally or externally. So he did say the word externally at one point. Like, that he did say it.
Said the word. The best answer here is I handed about this on the dig, and I don't know if it's going to be Matt Lloyd from the Timberwolves or somebody else, because at this point I'm kind of like worried it's a feint and it's going to be somebody else. To me, the way that you do this, as you say, the culture is not broken. So we're promoting Ben Tenzer, who understands the guys, and he's the guy that deals with the players and understands the relationships and handles the cap, and has a pre-existing relationship with David Adelman, and is like by all accounts, very reasonable guy and easy to get along with. Okay, you promote Adelman, continuity with the team. You're not you're not going to, because I will say the risk of hiring an outside coach would have been like, what if he comes in and Joker doesn't get along with him? Problem, right? Or Jamal or Aaron, right? So you build that continuity. Then on top of it, you hire a president of basketball operations on top to reevaluate the roster and be the voice in the room that is like bringing an outside perspective. That to me is like the best outcome here, is if Tenzer is GM or Tommy Balchetis. Honestly, I think Tommy would do a great job. I just want to say that for the record. Or and Matt Lloyd or another president of basketball operations on top, over the top of it, whoever that is. And that to me is like the outcome that gets you an outside perspective to reanalyze the roster, to look at these and be like, okay, I know you all I think you need someone in the room to be like, yeah, guys, like, I get it. I get it. But hear me out. What if we traded this guy for this guy? Right? And to have those outside connections. I think that that's the best process, but what do I know? I mean, genuinely, what do I know? I've never worked in the front office, but that to me would be the optimum outcome here. And I do think there's a chance that that's what happens, Ryan.
Let me ask you one final thing before we get out of here. What would be your percentage odds that Denver wins the championship in 2026?
Less than 10%.
10% was kind of the top benchmark number that I came up with as well. I kind of just think it's in that 5 to 7% range again. And is that good enough? Is that a good enough number for Denver to feel happy? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, we'll have lots of time to talk about it and see if we can talk ourselves into a higher or lower number, and we'll continue doing that this week. Appreciate you guys being with us. Thanks for joining us. My thanks to Ryan Blackburn for his expertise and for covering the presser with David Adelman and Josh Kroenke. Make sure to give us the 5-star reviews. Also, I would love it if you guys let us know what kind of guests you guys want to hear from this offseason, because we'll have lots of chances for that as well, like Jake Coyne, who joined the guys last night. Appreciate you guys being with us. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.
David Adelman.